Natural medicine is all about aligning with nature. Like we partner with nature, we become more in tune with nature. And so instead of trying to force a particular outcome or to control the symptoms or suppress them like we do with pharmaceuticals, that's the conventional way of thinking. When we work with plants, when we work with natural remedies, we're trying to make the body's natural responses more effective. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about aligning with nature. In other words, how do we know that we're doing the right thing when we're trying to use natural medicine to feel better? There's a lot of things we can do. There's a lot of plants and herbs and supplements. How do we know that the ones we're choosing are actually the best? So a lot of times, especially in our culture today, when we think about an intervention, a remedy, a drug, or a supplement, we believe that it's worked when the symptoms go away. So an example would be if you have a cold or a flu coming on, maybe you get really stuffy, maybe you have some body aches or a sore throat, and you go to the drugstore and you go down the aisle with all the cold and flu remedies and you choose one. Maybe let's say you choose Dayquil, which is really popular, and you take this orange shot of liquid, and about 20 minutes later, or maybe an hour later, you don't feel the pain anymore. You don't have the stuffiness. It's all dried up. And you're like, okay, great. I took care of the problem. Now I can go on with my day. Now I can go back to work. And we consider that the remedy worked, right? And I guess I should just state before we go on that I understand that not everybody gets sick days at their work. And if you're a parent like me, you never get a sick day. The kids are always on. So there's lots of times when a strategy like this might feel like it's the only thing that's available to you. And so I'm not knocking symptom relief in any way. We definitely do work on symptom relief in our practice. However, when we're thinking about it from a natural medicine's perspective, and when we think about the way that we want to work on our health, the long-term strategy, then this type of suppress the symptoms mentality isn't really the optimal solution, because the symptoms themselves are actually part of the solution. They are the resistance to the illness. They're a sign that your body is fighting back against the infection. So if you, maybe when you get a virus or you get this respiratory infection, your body wants to kick it out. Your body wants to get rid of it. And so what it does is it produces a bunch of mucus to capture and expel that bad stuff out of your system. So maybe you're going to build up a fever and these other things, the mucus, the fever, and those things make you feel uncomfortable, but they're not actually the problem. They're actually your body's way of getting rid of the infection, the pathogen. And so from a more natural perspective, you might hear somebody say you can take a large dose of golden seal instead of taking the Dayquil. So that's a herb, it's natural, it comes from the earth. And it will stop your runny nose. It does do that. But stopping the runny nose is actually still suppression of the body's ability to heal itself. So what we're doing here is we're just taking a natural remedy and we're using it in the exact same way that we would the over-the-counter drug or the pharmaceutical. We really haven't changed anything except the golden seal is not glowing orange. It is more natural, so I guess that's better. But it's still not optimal because we're working against nature. We're not allowing the body to have its own course of action. We're actually stopping the healing. And we're actually working against the body. And whether we use Dayquil or golden seal or echinacea or another herb like that, the result is still the same. And with golden seal, we actually see this a lot because golden seal is pretty well known as a remedy for colds and flus, but it's also known on the internet and through natural medicine circles as a herbal antibiotic. And so when you hear people say that, you might think, oh, cool, like I've got this infection, I've got this bacterial pneumonia or some other viral infection or bacterial infection, and you might think you could just take a bunch of golden seal in very high doses because it's an herbal antibiotic and you want to kill those bacteria. But the problem here is that golden seal doesn't have systemic activity in the body. So it does work as an antimicrobial, but only on the areas it comes in contact with. So it's not going to circulate through your bloodstream. It's not going to get up into your lungs. It's not going to kill all the bacteria in your body. It doesn't work like an antibiotic does. And so what we're doing is we're taking a basic pharmaceutical category of action and we're superimposing that onto this poor herb, golden seal in this case. And that leads us to make mistakes. It makes us attempt something that's not actually really going to work. And then it gives natural remedies a bad name. People are like, oh, I took golden seal and it didn't work. The truth is that herbs are not weak drugs. They're not natural pharmaceuticals. They don't work in that same way. They aren't meant to work against you. And natural medicine is all about aligning with nature. Like we partner with nature, we become more in tune with nature. And so instead of trying to force a particular outcome or to control the symptoms or suppress them like we do with pharmaceuticals, that's the conventional way of thinking. When we work with plants, when we work with natural remedies, we're trying to make the body's natural responses more effective. We're looking at what would my body be trying to do in this situation and how can I help it? Sort of like if you're doing the dishes and you want some help and somebody's like, oh, how can I help you? If you're at the sink washing dishes, you might get a towel and hand it to that person that's helping you and they might start drying. You're both working together to accomplish the same task, but you're doing it faster and you're doing it more effectively. If that same person said, how can I help you? And they came in and started throwing the dishes away and bringing you new ones, that's not sustainable and that's not helping you do what you're already doing. So it's just a little kind of like real life example of how we don't want to go against what we're doing. We actually want to help the body to do what it needs to do because the body actually really knows what it's supposed to do. And we often get ourselves into big trouble, especially in our modern culture, trying to force something. We try to make these changes in the body at a molecular level. And the body is already doing what it needs to do. It innately knows how to heal. And so it's already trying to respond to your illness or your imbalance or your disease in the best possible way. And a lot of times the only reason that the body can't quite get to the finish line and get you better is because it doesn't have the raw materials that it needs. It sometimes needs a little bit of help there. And to support it, you can actually focus on the 4 key foundations that we talked about yesterday. And if you need a little extra boost, then that's something that plants and herbs can provide. So again, the symptoms are not the disease. And a lot of times they're part of the solution or the resistance. But I think it's best if we do an example here to explain a little more clearly. So let's talk about cold and flu for a minute. We're all very familiar with that, especially this year. And when you get a cold or when you have the flu, a bunch of things start happening in the body, and you're probably really familiar with them. A lot of times we'll start producing a lot of mucus and snot, and there seems like there's mucus everywhere. It's going down our throat, and now we're coughing. It's coming out of our eyes. It's stuffed up in our nose. And all we really want to do is just stop it, because it's very hard to live your life with all this mucus everywhere and sneezing and coughing. And what we don't realize is that the mucus actually has a purpose. It's actually in many ways fighting the pathogen. So first off, if you imagine that this little virus or bacteria that's trying to get into your body, it's trying to find a host, and it's trying to get in through your nose or through your mouth. And if there's so much snot coming out of your nose, then the bacteria actually, it's more difficult to get up in there and set up shop. So first off, the mucus is providing a physical barrier. And also inside the mucus and inside the mucosal barrier, there's tons of little immune responders that live there. And so the mucus is actually serving 2 purposes. And it's really helping you to not get more sick and to get better. And then also you might start feeling like you're getting warm. You might start developing a fever. And that's a really strong defense against infection. The cold or flu virus can't really survive when you raise the heat in your body or even in your lungs to that higher temperature. So again, we don't want to suppress something like that. We don't want to suppress a fever. If you take Tylenol or something like that, then you're going to make it so your body can't produce the effective fever anymore. And maybe that makes you a little more comfortable temporarily. However, it's likely to extend the course of your illness and make it a lot harder for you to kick it out of your body and get done with it. So some herbal remedies that we might want to work with for cold and flu can be used in this type of understanding to support the body in doing what it needs to do to get better. So one of my favorites is fire cider. And fire cider is a blend of pungent herbs that are infused into vinegar, and you infuse them in there and then you strain it off and you take a shot when you feel colds coming on. We have a recipe on our website at glownaturalwellness.com. What you'll find is that it's a really powerful remedy. It's very intense, it's fiery, it really gets your nose running, makes you tear up a little bit. There's horseradish in it. So if you've ever grated a horseradish or even eaten wasabi or really hot peppers, that like kind of makes you tear a little bit and your nose starts to run, and that's stimulating mucosal flow. And it's actually clearing away some stuff that your body might really want to get rid of. It's some stuff that's stuck in there, and it brings fresh movement. It really helps with circulation. It's very supportive. And inside, you'll also find things like garlic and cayenne, and these things are very stimulating to immune activity on their own. And so the body is trying to fight off infection, right? And so you can give it this little push, this little boost, and that's awesome. You're not going against the body's response. You're actually making the response a little bit stronger, and that's great. And then finally, fire cider it's fiery, it's hot, so it's warming and stimulating to the body, and it actually helps to raise the core temperature, and that helps you produce that good, strong fever, which I know a lot of people think is bad, but the fever is actually what's going to help fight off that infection so you can get over your illness quickly and get back to normal. So again, these are all ways that we can support the things the body is already doing to cope with infection. And there's one other thing I love when we're feeling kind of stuffy, and that is steam using a herb called thyme. So this is where you get a big pot of boiling water and you put a towel over your head so the steam goes trapped and it goes into your face, and you can put a handful of herbs. Dried thyme is a great one. And when it goes up into, you breathe in that steam, and it's hot and spicy and pungent again, and you breathe it all the way deep down into your lungs. And this is great because thyme steam is a contact antimicrobial, meaning that it affects things it comes in contact with. So if you were to drink a tea with the herb thyme, you're not going to get that antimicrobial action in your lungs, but because it's not going to pass through your bloodstream. But if you do the steam, it's going to basically send help in by the same pathway that the pathogens got in there. And so you begin to inhale the steam and the thyme through your nose and breathing it deep down into your lungs. And you can actually start to affect the bacteria or stop the viruses from replicating. And you can really work on all the pathogens and other microbial things that might have gotten in there. And it's great, but it has to be able to touch whatever it has to work on. So by breathing in or getting into the right areas, that is really going to help you. Plus, the steam is an expectorant, so it helps to dislodge some of the uncomfortable mucus, stimulate the flow of the mucus from the sinuses, relieving that pressure. And so it's really excellent for helping you kind of relax. It's really nice when you're sick and you feel crappy and you might have wanted to take something like a Dayquil and you're congested and the pressure builds up in your sinuses. So having a nice steam kind of clears that out, releases the pressure, and it also helps you to be able to go to sleep, right? So you can relax, you can breathe, and you're going to feel a lot better. And you're actually helping your body along the way, right? You're actually helping your body to do what it wants to do. And so that is really going to be great. And then also, if you can sleep better, a lot of the time when you're sleeping, your body is going to be doing a lot of the repair work and the healing as well. So another final example here in plants that help the body to heal is elderberry. So elderberry is often taken in a syrup, and this is a wonderful thing to keep around when anyone in the family, including kids, are dealing with cold or flu. Elderberry syrup is a really effective immune stimulant. It helps the body fight off a lot of viruses and bacteria. Because what it does, what viruses is great because it inhibits the replication of the virus, and it makes it harder for them to procreate in your body. And that makes it easier on your body because that means your immune system doesn't have to work quite as hard. It still has to do the work, but it only has to get rid of the viruses that are there. It doesn't have to get rid of the viruses that have been replicated because you actually help stop that action using the elderberry herb. So that is a really nice thing. And then underneath all of that, you've got the wonderful phytonutrients. That bright purple color is very important. And what it does is it has all these different compounds that help to heal, and they're called proanthocyanidins. And they really help to support the body, reduce excess inflammation, and support their immune response all around. And so it's really healthy for you. It's not working against the body. It really is helping the body to heal. And I really just want to stress, like, asking what is the body trying to do already and how can I support that? How can I make it easier? How can I make some contribution to the action that the body is already trying to do? Because the body is innately intelligent, and we really want to help point that in the right direction. And that's in contrast to taking a pharmaceutical agent that's going to suppress your symptoms, right? We don't want to suppress what the body is doing. We want to help it along. And even if a symptom goes away, the pathogen is still there. So even if you're not feeling the stuffiness from the cold, the virus is still in you, because something like Dayquil doesn't kill the microbes. It just works on the symptoms. And so that really doesn't do anything to address the infection. It just maybe makes you more comfortable while you have it, but because you're suppressing the body's natural ability, you're actually prolonging the amount of time you're going to be sick and really lowering your body's response and resistance. Same thing with painkillers. They numb the message, the pain signal that you're getting. And when you feel like you're in pain, your body is like saying, hey, we need to take it easy for a while. You need to go to bed. You need to rest. We need to recover. But people take painkillers so that they can push through and do more work. And that's actually creating more damage in the body. We really want to, our strategy has to be that we're going to work with the body and not inhibit the response, but instead help it along. And so again, we don't want to suppress fevers. We don't want to suppress mucus. We want to help the body do those things. And while they're uncomfortable, I know nobody wants to deal with that. This is what enables our immune system to go to work. So if you turn that off, then you can't really fight off a pathogen effectively. And in many cases, it's actually been documented that working with these kinds of things in the course of an illness like that is actually going to extend the amount of time that you're sick. So things that suppress, like the Tylenol, the Dayquils, things like that, even the natural golden seal, working with those is going to make your symptoms last longer. And over time, it's going to lower your resistance. And sometimes something like a simple cold can get transformed into something much deeper, like pneumonia, and you can end up in the hospital because you suppressed your body's ability to cope with that. And this is something that we don't want to do. We don't want to overrule the body's ability to do what it does best. The body has this natural intelligence, and these practices, the body knows how to have these agents come in and enforce a strategy to heal you. Again, even natural herbs like golden seal, you might think, oh, well, this is natural. It's a plant medicine. This is natural medicine. But if we're suppressing the body's innate immune function, then we're really not doing our body a favor. You know, the snot has a healing property, the mucus has a healing property, and the fevers do as well. So even though it's uncomfortable, even as a parent you might worry if your child has a fever, we don't actually want to stop that action, because that is a natural immune response, and that is how we actually heal. So it's not really about the tools that we use in medicine that make it naturopathic. It's about the method and the philosophy behind it. So this is where applying a desire to help the body is really how we align with nature. And so we want to value expression of the body over suppression. We want to express these symptoms in a way that are effective and in a way that accomplishes what we need to do. And that's where we're going to try to support the body rather than saying, oh, it's uncomfortable, we got to turn it off. And that's true in society as well. We want to encourage expression over suppression. And so my definition of best practice is always going to be aligned with the body's full natural response to illness from start to finish. From that first moment that you start to feel a little tired, a little weak, a little crampy, a little stuffy, through all the way through fighting off the infection and the late stages where the body is basically moving lymph around and trying to do the cleanup. We want to be able to support all of that, all the steps all along the way, and really honor the body in allowing it to do that. And supporting that means that we need to practice natural medicine in a way where we understand the physiology of what's going on, not just the expression of the symptoms. And so we always want to look to support what the body is doing. And I always want to be explaining this in this way so we can figure out how to best support the body in healing itself. So hopefully this gives you a new way of looking at natural remedies and supplements and plants and food, so that you can start using these natural medicines in a way that work with your body and not against it. If you have questions, be sure to reach out to me. We do respond to all of our questions, and I'd be happy to help you with that. So that's all for today. Take care. Bye-bye.